Hello, everybody. I'm Ryan from Fireside Yankees, and we've got a very special guest for you guys today. He holds a 2.03 ERA across 40 innings out of the bullpen in his first full professional season, a former UCLA Bruin, and after a trade with the Houston Astros that involved Caleb Ferguson, now a New York Yankee prospect, Kelly Austin. Kelly, how are we doing today?
I'm happy to be here. I'm pumped, Ryan.
That's awesome. We have a lot of really interesting questions we want to ask you. Really it starts with your journey at UCLA. So you are a Cali kid. You go to UCLA. I know you started at a different college before you transferred in there, but that's really where you got most of your college innings at. Can you take us through the process of pitching at UCLA and what that was like as a California kid?
Yeah. Growing up, going to high school and stuff like that, kind of everyone out there in Southern California, you're either a USC or a UCLA fan growing up. And so I had a couple cousins of mine that had gone through UCLA, and so a lot of my family was UCLA fans. And coming out of junior college, you don't hear about a lot of JUCO guys getting the opportunity to go and play there, and I got lucky enough to get the opportunity. So that was pretty cool. Was definitely fired up to get an opportunity there. And once I hit campus, not only just great school and great environment, but the coaching staff was amazing. John Savage over there, Nico Gallego, Brian Ward, those guys are really, really top end dudes. And, they're giving you the same advice that they were given to, guys like Garrett Cole, Trevor Bauer, Plutko, all these really great, pro guys that have come through the program. And got to play with a bunch of dudes that I'm now playing with and against in minor league baseball. So definitely was a great environment, and it was a great place to kind of like grow into and become a professional.
And coming out of UCLA, you take the unconventional route of going as an undrafted free agent to the Houston Astros. So, can you take us through that process of like what's it like being a UDFA, and if you feel like that's added a chip on your shoulder?
Oh yeah. You know, when it comes to the UDFA stuff, draft day, you can never be sure of anything. I talking to, coaches and, my agent and stuff like that, I thought draft day was a lock. I had been coming out of my senior year. I had had over 100 Ks. I was an All-American. I was like, oh, I'm for sure getting drafted. I didn't have like a crazy number I was asking for signing bonus wise. I was just like, I just wanted the opportunity. And, nothing ended up coming through, but, I got very fortunate. Houston offered me a good number as a free agent sign. And, that came through after the draft and was definitely fortunate, to get taken care of. I had just gotten married to my wife, and I wanted to be in a position to where we could be like in a safe spot financially, and we were. And so I was very fortunate for that. But, when every team passes on you 20 times and they do it back to back years, there's definitely a chip on your shoulder. But that was nothing new, going unrecruited out of high school and then, having to fight through junior college and stuff like that just to make it to Division One. And then kind of having the same situation where just unsigned, wasn't really looked at coming out of, Division One. You definitely keep that chip on your shoulder to know that you have to keep working. And so that's kind of where I've been at.
Yeah, and it's interesting you mentioned like going through the JUCO process, going unrecruited. It's almost like you've had to overcome and overcome and overcome to get to that next level.
Mm-hmm.
How do you think that's gonna help you going like now you have to battle against high A hitters where these guys are the best of the best at the college level, and now they're going to high A or double A where we're talking even better. Like how do you feel like that's gonna help you compete at that level?
I mean, if you don't have a chip in some way, whether you think, whether you were the dude that got recruited every time and you thought that like you have that chip of I'm the best and I have to be the best, or you have a chip that you have to prove everyone wrong. You have to have something that you carry with you because it's too many games, it's too long, it's too easy to get distracted, and so if you don't have like kind of something that you're walking with that's giving you a reason to keep pushing every day, you're gonna be left in the dust. You're gonna get lazy, you're gonna get distracted, and so it's good to have that.
Yeah, and speaking of like the length of season and all that, this is your first like full pro year. I know you pitched a little bit
Mhm.
in 2023, but this is your first full year. Like, how has been the adjustment of going from the college grind to now the professional level where there's a lot more games?
It's not terrible. Coming out of college, I was a big innings eater, kind of through my whole college career. And here in professional baseball, they're a lot more careful about your arm, especially nowadays with all the Tommy John issues coming up for a lot of pitchers. And so, being in the pen with the way it is now, it's actually not terrible. They're not really throwing you back to back days. Your pitch counts are low. They're really making sure you're getting rested and stuff like that. The biggest adjustment has honestly been, just the way that they schedule all the work when it comes to like weight rooms, sprints, stuff like that. It's really smart, and they're kind of catering to just making you a better athlete. Whereas in college, it's all about like they're making you a better athlete, but it's more so about we have to win games now. And, in minor league baseball, the focus is turning you into a major league player. It's not focusing on what's our minor league record going to be. Obviously you want to win, but turning you into a major league player is the most important thing. And so it's definitely cool being in a development oriented environment. And because of that, the adjustment isn't that bad.
Yeah, and it's interesting to hear you talk about like development versus winning because when you talk to like a lot of people in minor league baseball, they mention that same kind of like you're trying to make these guys better, right? Like winning,
Mhm.
you can win ugly and it doesn't feel great. Like it's not really what you want to do at the minor league level. You want to either win good or if you're going to lose, have a strong game from your hitters or good at bats or you execute pitches, whatever it may be. And you mentioned being like a workhorse. You were starting pitcher at UCLA, and a pretty good one at that, right? You mentioned All American, all that stuff. You're coming out of the bullpen now. Do you feel like becoming a starter again could be a goal for you down the road?
It's something that I'd definitely be open to. But the thing is just like I've found that I can't set goals that I can't control. When it comes to decisions that the organizations make and stuff like that, I can't decide, when they move me up. I can't decide what role they put me in. And so I would love to be a starter at some point, and I think that there may be, a window of opportunity where it comes around later in my career. Um, but for the time being, I'm just going to focus on, the goals that I have in order to become a major leaguer at what they have me doing right now. I would love to start, but that's out of my control. That's a decision that the front office has to make, and I don't get to make that. And so, for the time being, I'm just going to put my head down and keep working.
Yeah, and there are a lot of guys who like have they've shifted to the bullpen and they come back as starters and they're even better than ever. I mean, if you got of a guy like Michael King, who the Yankees traded for Soto, where like he's in a bullpen role with the Yankees for a while, he finally gets a crack at a starting rotation job, and now hey, he's pretty freaking good with the Padres. And
Yeah.
same thing with like Clark Schmidt and all that stuff. So I think that's an interesting perspective for sure. And speaking of pitching and kind of your arsenal, I love hearing about like a pitcher's like repertoire and all that stuff. And at high A, we don't really have information on minor league pitchers. Can you maybe break down your arsenal for us, whether that's velocity, movement, all that stuff?
Yeah, sure. So, four seam fastball. I'm a high slot. I'm a high ride guy, so I get a little bit more whiff on my four seam fastball than most do at my velocity because I'm 91, 92. I don't throw the ball super hard, but I'm averaging 21 to 22 inches of vertical break. So I get a lot of induced vert, and that causes me to get a higher whiff rate than one would normally get at my velocity. Off that, I throw a gyro slider. It's kind of a short, like 3 and 3, 5 and 5 kind of slider. Throw it decently hard. I'm throwing it like 85, 86. Um, Throw a splitter. That's kind of my main breaking ball that I'm throwing a lot. Throwing that 81, 82. Um, it's kind of sitting similar metrics to my gyro, just on the other side of the line. So I'm throwing an arm side. And then I've got a curveball that I'll use kind of sparingly throughout the season. I use it kind of as a strike stealer pitch, and it's right along the zero line around negative 12. And so that's kind of in my arsenal this year, kind of mainly living off those first three with like mixing in the curveball depending on the batter and stuff like that.
Yes, I'm noticing like a heavy emphasis on like that north-south deception, like vertical movement, all that stuff.
Yeah.
And I think it's so interesting to like hear you so well versed in pitch terminology and movement stuff like that. Some guys don't really want to deal with like the numbers and all that stuff, which is totally fine. Like whatever helps the player develop. Do you feel like like what is your comfort level with those numbers, and do you feel like how do you feel like that's helped you in your career?
Yeah, so I'm very comfortable with them. I kind of studied my butt off on them when all this stuff was coming about. Rapsodos and stuff and trackmans were hitting the college scene when I was kind of like a freshman, sophomore in college, and I was starting to realize like, oh, like people are really gonna start caring about this stuff. I should probably learn this, and so started studying my butt off on it. Because it's like I feel like you just kind of have to. Nowadays it's such a big part of how they evaluate you and how you develop and stuff like that. And so if you don't know where you're at, you could be in trouble. Um, Plus, I learning that, I started to realize like, dude, I can't make a ball move horizontally at all. I can make it move north south. I can't make it move horizontally. I've tried, and so it's like knowing that like I'm not going to sit here and spin my wheels, trying to learn, because in pro ball they tell you what they want you to learn, but in college you kind of have some freedom. And so it's like I'm not going to sit here spinning my wheels trying to learn a two seam or trying to learn a sweeper or something like that, because it's just I'm not going to be able to throw a good one most likely from my arm slot with the way my body moves. And if I do, I'm probably gonna have to change the way I throw in order to throw it, and it's not gonna be deceptive at all because you're gonna like see me throw out of this weird different spot. Um, so you really have to study your butt off on it, I think, in today's day and age, because if not, you're kind of gonna get left behind.
Yeah, for sure. It's awesome. You're talking about like even just like the way mechanically like your higher slot guy. It's just not going to make sense to get that like try to get that side spin or whatever you need to get to
Mm-hmm.
throw a really good sweeper or sinker. And you also mentioned organizations mostly tell you what they want you to do at this level. The process of getting traded from the Astros to the Yankees. Is there anything that the Yankees have told you differently, or anything the Yankees have tried to like ask you to do or try that you haven't done before?
Um, a little bit. So the goals are relatively the same. So we have similar goals. Honestly, the pitching side is not. There's not a huge difference. Both are very good organizations when it comes to pitching development. The Yankees are a little bit more well known for velocity development, and so they've talked to me about like a couple mechanical tweaks that Houston hadn't really brought up with me, to where they believe that they could get me to throw a little bit harder. And we've been doing some drill work in order to do that. And that's been fun, learning that and continuing to try to develop that way. Um, but outside of that, the way that we're graded, the way that we get reviewed post outings and stuff like that is very similar. I think you're going to find that a lot of like the top end orgs when it comes to pitching development, teams like Tampa, New York, stuff like that, you know, they're going to go about things pretty similarly in today's day and age, and I think that that's kind of held true. So it hasn't been too much of a transition, but I've been enjoying kind of getting those new ideas and those new drills peppered in, which has been
Yeah,
cool.
for sure, because if you talk about 91, 92 with 20 inches of vert, and then you can even jump it to 93, 94, right? Where like
Hmm.
that's when you go from like a good pitch to like it could take that next one. Everything else gets better off of that. Whether that's more velocity separation off the
Hmm.
splitter, or whether that means even a little bit of an uptick in slider velo, like all that stuff. I feel like velo chasing. I think there's such a like there's a villainization of chasing velocity, but at the end of the day, like pitchers want to dominate, right? Like pitchers want to get better,
Yeah.
even though there are obvious risks that come with training. But that's I feel like with every aspect of training, like you can get hurt doing anything.
100%, and there's a reality to it. It's not like, they're not taking me at like 91 and 92, and they're saying, hey, you need to throw 100. It's like, okay, well, let's look at this. Right now, you're above league average when it comes to location. You're above league average when it comes to shape. You're below league average when it comes to velocity. If we can just get you to league average at velocity, you're now above league average in the other two, and you become above league average fastball. And that makes sense. And so it's like, okay, well, if my whole goal is to get to the show, being above league average is a really great way to do it. And so that's kind of, the ideas that come with that. And so all it is just little development over the course of, the year, but it adds up. And so I'm excited to be part of it.
Yeah, and it's interesting you mentioned like the location command because I actually had a question about you. You've only walked 7 of 160 hitters you faced this year, and I was going to ask like if it was you felt like it was more of a command or like you just have a really aggressive mentality of I'm going to throw strikes, I'm going to throw strikes. Do you think it's a combination of both, or is it just like the command?
It's both for sure. I was kind of, you know, really, really taught at, from a young age, but also like really hounded on it at UCLA. We're trying to get ahead. We're trying to get, first 2 out of 3 pitches, we want to be strikes. We want to be in 0-2, 1-2 counts all the time. And so definitely there has to be an aggressive mentality when you're pitching. If you're passive, you're going to get in trouble. Um, but when it comes to having a high strikeouts, having a high strikeout rate while also having a low walk rate, you have to, be able to locate. You can have low walk rates and still be a little bit erratic because you can be erratic in the zone. Um, but in doing that, you probably won't get the best, chases and stuff like that because you have to throw close misses when it comes to like the sliders going, on, off. This splitter is just below the zone, stuff like that. And if you're not locating really well, you're going to throw it a little too far, and you're not going to get that chase. And so it's a little bit of both, I would say.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned like in zone command and how like you can, as you mentioned, you can run low walk rates and still
Mm-hmm.
have poor command because that splitter that just misses down, you don't get a chase. That's fine if it's 0-2. It's just 1-2. But you hang
Yeah,
that thing and it's 1-0 or it's 2-0 or
yeah,
I mean, God forbid his
exactly.
face is loaded, whatever it may be. And as a reliever, I feel like that's even more important because you're going to be asked to come into these situations where you're kind of a fireman. You got to get your team out of a jam. A home run is the last thing you want in those situations. So, do you feel like at the professional level, like in zone command, do you find yourself struggling more with it, or do you feel like it's kind of transitioned seamlessly from college?
It's transitioned really well just because of where I came from in college and kind of like the identity that I had built. Knowing that I wasn't a velocity first and a stuff first guy, I knew that I had to be able to get people out by moving the fastball and moving my off speeds. And, I went to a school that is just like, that's what they do. UCLA, with Sav and stuff like that. A huge, huge part of our identity there is just built off of being able to locate and move pitches. And so, going there for 2 years, that definitely gets ingrained into you. And so, moving into pro baseball, in terms of what guys chase and what guys don't chase, there hasn't been a huge gap from, the Division 1 level. The biggest gap that you're going to see mainly is just the level of tools that guys have. Guys are going to have some better power. Guys are going to have some better speed. Fielders are going to have better arms, stuff like that. But in terms of like the actual pitch decisions for who's swinging at what, there's not a huge gap yet. I'm sure that the gap gets bigger as you go up, but at this level, it's not that terrible. And so, so far, the transition has not been terrible. It's been pretty solid.
Yeah, it's interesting to hear too because we talk about like what makes guys swing at things and I also imagine like sweepers play to righties,
Mm-hmm.
splitters to lefties, like down away, like, that kind of stuff always translates. So it is interesting to hear. But I'm gonna shift gears a little bit when it comes to in zone command. It is related to that. Don't worry. Aaron Judge having the greatest season I've seen from a player since. I mean, I wasn't really alive for Barry Bonds. I'm kind of dating myself here, but I wasn't. If you got to face Aaron Judge right now, though, how would you go about it? How are you pitching to him? What would your like? What's going through your brain?
Um, well, honestly, sometimes the best decision is walking the guy. But if you got to pitch to him, um, last time I checked, which was not super recently, it was probably last year. The data on his like past few years is he doesn't have great batted ball data against curveballs and splitters, and so probably try to get to a point where I can at least get into like an 0-1 count and get slightly ahead, so that way I can throw like a heavier dosage of that the rest at bat. Um, Because honestly, as long as you keep the ball in the yard, I'd take that as a win against Aaron. So, I mean,
That's fair.
yeah, even if he hits a seed, and you're sitting there with a single or a double, you can work with it and you can go after the next guy. But that's probably the way I'd go after him, is just like looking at the data that, he mashes the heater, he mashes the slider. Let's probably stay away from those for the most part and go after him with probably mainly splitter and curveball.
Yeah, it's interesting when you talk about, like, there are certain situations you want to walk guys. I mean, it's interesting because yesterday Juan Soto gets intentionally walked in front of Aaron Judge, and the Judge does the usual, three-run bomb, which, I mean,
Yes.
I'm not saying Soto's not a great hitter. Of course he is, but I think it's definitely interesting to IBB the guy in front of Judge and give him
Yeah.
two base runners. That's one of the decisions. And shifting away from that, because I know it's a little more of an unorthodox question, what would you consider to be your biggest strength as a pitcher, and then your biggest strength as a teammate as well? So both on the field and kind of in the clubhouse.
Mm. Um, Oof. I would say my biggest strength as a pitcher is being able to stay calm in bigger situations. Um, you know, being able to just kind of like breathe, stay locked in, and not let the situation get too big for me, and kind of be the same guy no matter how many people are in the stands. I'd say that's probably my biggest thing as a pitcher. Um, as a teammate, honestly, I would say trying to listen more than I talk. I think if you're trying to, listen to your teammates, hear guys out, and not try to make things about you and try to, instead make things about them, you know, I think that's a good spot as a teammate. I don't think I'm ever going to be like the team captain type where I'm trying to rally the troops and, stir up people. But if I can, be a good individual and have that conversation one to one with another pitcher or another player and help them that way, I think that that's equally valuable as a teammate. And so I think that's what I'm trying to be there as a teammate.
Yeah, that's no. I love hearing that. I'm kind of a yapper, so like I got to work. I got to take some advice on the whole listening thing. I think I could do
Oh,
better
you're
on that.
good.
No, I think my mom would want me to try to work on that. Love my mom, Mrs. Garcia. We love her in this establishment. But when it comes to when it comes to teammates and stuff like that, is there anybody in Hudson Valley that you've gotten to know, or like maybe you've played at the college level or whatever, that you've like kind of quickly gotten to know?
Yeah, honestly, most of the bullpen I've plugged in really, really quickly with. It's a great group of guys. It's been really awesome. I was fortunate enough to, we had a few Pac-12 guys that I had played against, on the pitching side, for example, Trent Sellers, you know, plugged in with that guy really, really quickly. But I mean, the team is just full of, really, really good dudes. We got Indigo Diaz, Harrison Cohen, Mason Vineyard, all these really, really, great dudes, Blaine Abeta, Thomas Balboni got traded over from the Padres same time as me. There's a ton of like really good dudes, in our starting rotation, in our pen on the pitching side that I've been able to plug in really, really quickly with. And, the hitters are great dudes too. We got Gmart, Kiko, Rock, all those guys. And so, the team's been really, really welcoming. And, honestly, I've been able to kind of like transition in really, really well with that group of guys. They run their locker room well. They're really good dudes, and so it's been a fun time.
That's awesome, man. Is this your first time in New York, or is this or have you been there before?
No, this is my first time in New York. We went down to Brooklyn last week for a series, and that was actually my first time ever in the city, and
Wow.
so that was pretty cool. Kind of like trying to take advantage of it. We had a rain out, and so had got an umbrella and was walking around, and that was pretty cool. And then that off day, my wife and I ended up going back to the city and kind of having a day in there, and that was cool. So I'm definitely excited to be here, but it's my first time. Yeah.
I didn't. That's awesome, dude. No, I mean, I was born in Queens and moved out to Long Island, so like I've lived here my whole life. But that's awesome. Have you had a New York slice yet?
I have. I
What'd
have. It
you
was
what'd you
good.
have on it?
It was just pepperoni.
Dude, pepperoni. That's my go-to slice. I
Yeah.
have I don't know if you've tried. I don't know if you're like a buffalo chicken kind of guy. I don't know if you are.
I do like a good buffalo chicken.
Dude, buffalo chicken slices. They're different. They're next level, man. They're special. Like I'm telling you, man. I like pizza. I love pizza. I love pepperoni. But that right there, that's the holy grail of pizza, in my opinion.
All right, so if I'm in New York City, where do I go for a buffalo chicken slice? Where's the spot?
So there's a for pepperoni. There's a spot in Brooklyn called Smiley's that like I will go to bat for. They also have a great sausage slice, which I will go to bat for. I used to go to school around that area. And then for a buffalo chicken slice, I mean, I don't mean to say this to say it like kind of glaze every New York spot, but I think you could basically go to any New York spot and you'll get a similar experience.
All right.
For the most part, there's a spot called Kiss My Slice in Manhattan that I think is pretty good. You could also get like 2 cheap slices of cheese pizza, and they've got buffalo sauce there. Like I've never seen that before in a pizza place. They've got the bottle. You do your business, you take it, and you go, and it's phenomenal. It rocks. So. Pizza, it checks all the boxes for me. It's cheap, it tastes good, and yeah, like it's not great for my like heart, but like I don't, good time, long time, that kind.
But good for the soul.
Exactly, good for the soul. And also the coffee experience. Have you had, is there any coffee places you're starting? Are you a coffee guy in the first place?
I'm not really a coffee guy. I'm
Really?
gonna be honest with you. I don't drink much, and so haven't really gotten coffee in the city. But I'm open to it. I guess I gotta learn.
Are you a caffeine guy in general at all, or is it no?
Not really. Not really.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's good, honestly. That's like you got it going. You got self. You get up in the morning.
Yeah. No, 100%. I definitely don't fit it in the pen. They love to like bang their energy drinks right before they go out. And so, not really. I don't really do that. I've never really been a caffeine guy. I'd probably be bouncing off the walls. And then it would be like too much for me, and I'd be throwing the ball off the backstop. But no, yeah, not really a caffeine guy.
As a former high school bullpen guy who notably hit more batters than he struck out, I have to say, man, energy drinks in the bullpen, it just goes. Like I don't know how to explain
they
it.
blend well. They
do. It just the energy. Yeah. Like I've always said this for like pitchers in general. I think that a really good pitcher. They have to be at least a little bit weird. Just a little bit. Like, at least a little bit. There's, like, come on. You think, like, Max Scherzer. I don't think Max Scherzer is completely wired. I think there's something that's not right there. You know what I mean? And it makes him great. That's how I feel about pitchers, man.
Yeah. No, 100%. 100%.
Yeah, wait, go ahead. Sorry. No, go ahead.
I was going to say, they could be normal most of the time, but you have to have that, like, switch that you can flip. And it's, like, right around game time, that switch gets flipped and they go a little crazy.
It's different, man. I don't know what pitching does, but like it's the most unique experience in the world. I've never like had a rush or an adrenaline like that. And like I've done things like I was like ziplining once in Mexico, and I will never do that again. I'm terrified of heights. I was there with like my 13-year-old cousin, and she made me look like the 13-year-old girl there. Like I should like dude, knee shaking, all that stuff. Pitching is a different animal. I can't explain why.
It just is.
It just is. So for my last question, and this again, it's not in the style of the Aaron Judge question, but it is an unorthodox question. If there is one pitch from any pitcher currently in baseball, so can't pull like a pitch from Sandy Koufax or whatever it may be. If you could take one pitch from somebody's arsenal and add it to your arsenal, same velo, same movement, all that stuff, whose pitch are you taking and why? Doesn't have to just be a Yankee, anybody.
Okay, so. It totally goes against what I was saying earlier, but Sonny Gray's too soon. I grew up loving Sonny Gray. I love Sonny Gray, and I will watch those videos of him front dooring lefties with that two seam for hours. I love that pitch. That is like my favorite pitch to watch in baseball. And if I could have that in my pocket, I would be so fired up. But that would probably be the pitch. It would probably be Sonny Gray's two seam because I grew up watching that thing and I love it. I absolutely love it.
Were you an A's fan growing up, or just like you just watch a lot of Sonny Gray or Vanderbilt baseball, whatever it may be?
Yeah, I grew up an Angels fan, but I love Sonny.
That's fair.
I just love the dude growing up. I remember him from those good Vanderbilt teams and stuff like that, and that's around the time I was just starting to get into college baseball, like in terms of like watching it as a kid. And I thought that guy was the man. I still think he's the man. But, growing up, just watching that dude, absolutely love that two seam, and that would be the pitch for sure.
See, as this is a Yankees podcast, so I'm not sure how people in the comments are going to feel about Sonny Gray, but as a short guy, absolutely love Sonny Gray. As a dude who is 5'8", love Sonny Gray, man. He represents the short king community well. I don't have a gripe against people who are 6 feet tall or whatever. I am a little jealous, but I don't have a gripe. I'm just jealous, that's all. It is also a long-going joke on this channel that, like, I'm, like, 5'1" or whatever, even though I am 5'8". Like, I passed my driver's test. I tweeted, like, I passed my driver's test, and, like, one of the replies is, oh, you're finally tall enough to see over the dashboard. It's like, I'm like a not even that, there are so many, I know so many people who are shorter than me. That's a lie. I don't know so many people. I know, like, two.
You know some, yeah.
There are some out there, but Sonny Gray, short king, Kelly, if there's anything you want to say or anything you want to plug before we depart, you can do so now. If there's anything you want to plug or whatever it may be.
Don't really have any plugs. Just, just glad to be part of the Yankees org and happy to be on the show.
Well, I will plug one thing for you. Okay. Guys, Hudson Valley Renegades. You can watch Hudson Valley Renegades to see Kelly Austin pitch. It is a renovated ballpark, so I do recommend going there as well. And we'll be hopefully seeing more of you soon and getting to follow your story through professional baseball. Kelly, thank you so much again for coming on. Guys, give him a warm welcome in the comment section. Make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe, and tell us what your favorite slice is as well. I want to know that. I would love to know about the comment section. And have a great rest of your day, everybody. Peace out.
Perfect.